Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Discourse for today, February 10th, 2023. I'm your host, Tristan. Here, why don't I just, I'm just gonna, this will make things look like absolute ass the entire stream, but I think that's okay. Let's get it here. Yeah. Let's just keep this permanently in the corner here for a little bit. There we go. Okay. Hi. Hello. My God, I have too many windows open. Okay. There we go. There's what I was looking for. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. My name is Tristan. My name is Tristan. Welcome to the Discourse. I am the host of the YouTube channel Step Back, and I am also the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens. You can find Step Back at stepbackhistory.com or twitch.tv/stepback, and you can go and you can support It's Probably Not Aliens by going to probsnotaliens.com or find it at twitch.tv/Probably Not Aliens. I think that covers the gamut of things. So I stream on Fridays at noon. Typically I stream on both YouTube and Twitch, but because Twitch is doing a promotion with Hogwarts Legacy right now, I'm not going to be streaming on Twitch until that is no longer the case. So just YouTube for a little bit. If you want to support my work, you can do so by signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/stepback. If you sign up there, you help me immensely, help grow my channel, and also, you end up getting a bunch of access to cool content, bonus content, ad-free videos, not just from me, but from tons of creators, and many of them I know you love. You could also support through Patreon, patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or if you, I guess if you have Amazon Prime, you can go over to Twitch and give me a Twitch Prime subscription, but that's not going to be a thing right now. You could also do super chats if you're over there in the chat and you want to help out in some way. Of course, none of it is required. It's just all, these are the ways if you have dollars that you wish to support with. My latest video is called There Have Always Been Trans People. It's a video about the long and storied history of trans people and how they've basically always existed as long as there has been a gender to transition from. They have been part of our culture. And I am happy to say that video might be my most successful video I've made in a very long time. If not my most successful video, I don't know. It's doing some real numbers right now, which makes me happy because it was a video that I wanted to make and did not expect to do well. And then when it first came out, it actually did not do well. But a few weeks in, it has really started to pick up, and it makes me very happy for both, the state of my audience and the fact that doing the right thing also led to a successful YouTube video was a very happy thing. So how does not playing it help trans rights? Honest question. Great question. Because basically at this point, J.K. Rowling has become the unofficial face of a movement that is dedicated to stripping back the human rights of an entire population of people. A movement that has been increasing in eliminationist rhetoric in the last year or so. And one of the ways that you could try to curb the influence of this billionaire transphobe from further supporting her continued wealth and relevance in public discourse in stripping back people's human rights is to make it so that essentially that no Harry Potter thing can ever come out that does not appear to have some sort of pushback against it, because we want to establish that if you are going to be a transphobe, that if you make something you are going to get criticized. You're going to get you're going to get criticized for doing it. So basically, by not playing the wizard game and not, by not playing the wizard game, you are at least helping in some capacity for what trans people are asking for, which is to make it so that it, it hurts the bottom line of brands to be associated with Harry Potter, and hopefully take down some of the relevance of a person who is using all of her influence to try and push an exterminationist agenda. So that's the main thing. And in many ways, also, if you just want to do it in a small way, it's literally the easiest thing you could ever do. It's not buying a game. By not buying one game, you are at least showing some form of solidarity or companionship or allyship with a community that has asked people not to. And this isn't even talking about how apparently the Wizard game also has some serious anti-Semitic themes to it, and there are some Jewish groups that are asking people not to buy the game as well. So, yeah, that's the whole take on why. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, how's chat doing? Yeah, it would be nice if every single time a Harry Potter piece of media came out, whether it be a video game, novel, movie, or whatever, that it is met with people who are giving it shit for directly giving money to a extremely wealthy person who is pushing, as I mentioned, an eliminationist campaign against an entire population of people. Like, I don't think it's too large of a stretch to go to right now to mention that what J.K. Rowling is doing with her influence is pushing for what is essentially the genocide of an entire group of people. Because when you are trying to push that people, just by the nature of their existing, are a problem, there is no other direction to go except that you are literally advocating for genocide. And I just got an Avada Kedavra GIF sent to me, so obviously, because one of the things that I've been doing is that Twitter has been sending me promoted tweets of Hogwarts Legacy stuff, and I just, every time I see it, I just reply trans rights, and God, the gamers get so mad. It's absurd how mad they get when that happens. So, to the fact that I just got my first death threat over it for saying trans rights to a video game. So that's fun. What I think is very amusing about the whole thing is that the gamers, like, I mentioned this on the podcast that isn't out yet, so it'll be a few weeks before it comes out. But like, what I don't get, or maybe what I do get, because it says a lot about the people who are vehemently trying. They're as the Renegade cut video that just came out a couple hours ago shows greatly. There are three camps. One camp is people who want to support their trans brothers and sisters and siblings by not buying a single video game. Wild, I know. Second are people who are just actively transphobic and bigoted and are intentionally signaling that they must buy this game in order to show that they hate a marginalized group of people. Those people are pieces of shit, and there's not really much talking to them. What I find the wildest, and this happens, it's every time I just quietly comment trans rights on all of these Hogwarts Legacy videos or posts on Twitter, is the people who want to play the game and are doing every form of mental contortionism they possibly can think of to justify why it's okay that they can put aside their allyship with trans people to buy a video game, which is wild. So, yeah. To the point where, like, there was one TikTok that I was watching where they were sponsored by Hogwarts Legacy, and I just commented trans rights. And he wrote this, like, the creator wrote this huge screed about, like, oh, did you post this on a iPhone? Did you post this while wearing Nikes? And I'm like, holy shit, buddy. It's not buying one video game. Like, chill the fuck out. Anyways, that's that. That's this is the Discourse, and Discourse is Discourse. Oh yeah, so my latest video is as I mentioned, it's there's always been trans people, and the next video that I'm working on, I'm actually currently working on 2 videos because I'm trying to do a sort of nebula first thing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on a video of a response to Ancient Apocalypse, which that should be the one that everybody is going to get near the end of February. And then I'm doing a second video. There's a second video that should be coming out for patrons / people on Nebula soon. That'll be coming out for everybody else at the end of March, which is a history of the Iraq War. And I don't want to announce anything too crazy about that video yet, the Iraq War video, but there's something in the works on that video that I am very, very excited about, that I think will blow people's minds when they see it. And I don't want to spoil it yet, because it hasn't happened yet. And until it's like, until it's written down, I'm not going to give it away, but just know that there's something very exciting about the Iraq War video that I'm working on. Yeah. So if you want to submit a question for this stream or a future stream, I'm going to put a link in the chat. You just go to that link, submit your question. It'll show up on my list of questions. I have a handful of questions, but I am riding solo today. Mia's not going to be in today. She's going to be in next week. She's a little bit burnt out after making her latest video. So Mia will be here next week for that. And so usually when I'm on my own, I answer questions a lot faster. So we'll see. I can also rant about stuff for a long period of time. I have a feeling I'm going to have to discuss the Wizard game a few more times, Turf Legacy or whatever. And also, if there's anybody new in the chat, if this is your first time watching the stream, please make yourself known. Say hello. This is a really great community we have here. And please join in the conversation and make yourself known. Yeah. So that's that. Yeah. I do like now that Twitter is working so well that I'm seeing posts from people that I blocked now. So that's fun. I like that. Man. I get so many free people to block doing this. Right now, I'm just going through my my replies or my mentions on Twitter and just block. Done. There we go. Just blocked like 6 people. Oh yeah, there's also the balloon. I forgot about the balloon. But yeah. Good old Hassan Piker deciding that he's really mad about not being allowed to play a single video game. Lots of people who I would not suspect getting mad that they're not supposed... Maybe I don't get gamers. Maybe there's something about gamers in general that they feel like their human rights are under threat if they're not allowed to play a single video game. And by not allowed, I mean ask politely to not play one video game. Just one. Not video games in general. Not even a video game company. Just a single release. One game. And it's wild. As somebody who has a Steam library that has like probably over 100 or maybe even 200 games that I have not played, I don't understand why they're not being able to play a single game is making them absolutely fucking crazy. Like, I gotta say, I'll refer to it to my own thing, which is that there was a game that came out in 2021 that Tristan very, very wanted to play. Very much wanted to play. It was a remake of a game that I basically spent my entire high school career playing instead of doing homework and, you know, getting good grades. And they remade it in 2021. And boy, howdy, did I want to play that really badly, but also the company that made it, and made a lot of other games that I very much enjoy, is embroiled in sexual harassment lawsuits, or is embroiled in accusations of sexual harassment, as well as a large labor lawsuit from the state of California, and is just kind of a shitty company overall. And so, you know what I did? I didn't buy the game. I didn't buy it. I still have not bought it. It's 2023. The game has been out now for several years, and I still, Tristan, have not bought the game. And you know what? Most of the time, it has not bothered me at all. I don't care, because it's one video game, and I literally have infinite video games. Yeah. Would I have loved to have played Diablo 2? Sure. But you know what? I also care about the rights of people to work at a job and not get sexually harassed. I care about that. And if I had bought Diablo 2, all I would be able to think about is how many people how many people worked on this game who felt threatened by the freaking leering advances of their bosses while making this game, while drawing this asset, while programming this system. How many people are underpaid and overworked because Blizzard Entertainment has one of the lowest salaries in the entire games industry. Yeah, it's bullshit. And, you know, I really can't think about playing Blizzard games anymore, really, unless all I can think about is those people. So a lot of people, they're like, when could I have permission to play said game? And in my mind, most of the time it's to me, it's like, can you? I used to really like Kesha's 2009, early career music. Now that I know that she was basically being predated upon and was being basically sexually assaulted by her manager, like while making all that music, like, I don't know, it feels pretty hard to like listen to it and feel the same way again. It's just, it's, I don't know. The consumerism hits different now. So that's that. And yeah, like other like horrific things have happened in and also, yeah, the Harry Potter discourse has also overshadowed the fact that there was this massive earthquake in Turkey/Syria that it's hard to get disaster relief to the people who are affected, because apparently Turkey is fucking shutting down the internet and making it hard for people to like actually like get out there and like people to actually like talk about what they need and everything like that, because Turkey doesn't want to appear weak, I guess. So we don't know how bad it is. We don't have ability to reach out to our friends and donate. It's like, it's actually, it's insane. And then also, I guess America spent the last like 2 weeks shitting its pants over a balloon, over a weather balloon. So that's fun. What a week. What a week we've been having, huh? I do like also that I'm getting a lot of my death threats from accounts that are Twitter Blue verified with like 10 or 10 followers. So, you know, life is grand. Life is grand. My answer to that would be when Rowling does. Okay. The balloon thing. So as far as I can tell, maybe I missed out on this because honestly, I could not be bothered to get into balloon discourse. The balloon discourse seemed so absurdly stupid that I was just like not going to engage with anything that had to do with that. But as far as I can tell, China had a like balloon that was sent over the Arctic that during that like polar vortex got blown south into the US, and America was basically obsessed with thinking that it was some sort of spy balloon, and they sent fucking fighter jets to shoot down this like weather balloon. And like Canada, because Canada is like such a fucking Me Too country, like CBC wrote articles that was like, the balloon went through Canada too. Click to read the story about Canada's balloon. And I was like, oh my God, I fucking hate everything from this. This is fucking balloonacy. I swear. I don't know. I could not process why people fucking cared about this balloon, but it's where we're at, right? And so instead I was busy, you know, working on my next video and, taking care of a baby and, you know, being cool and thinking about fun things instead of just fucking losing it over a goddamn weather balloon. The first victory a fighter jet has had since, the US bought like 150 of them, costing the public insane amounts of tax dollars. Yeah, like each one of those fighter jets costs like $10 billion or something insane like that. And also, like, each of their missiles costs like $10 million each. And they just spent all of that of your tax money to take down a fucking balloon. Holy shit. A fucking Chinese weather balloon. Holy shit. Trust me, if all it takes for China to rile up the United States to the point where it's wasting millions of dollars in military munitions is a fucking balloon, there is no way America is winning that Cold War, man. If China can make America freak out that much over a fucking weather balloon, America's done. They're gonna die of their own cowardice. America has like no upper limit on military spending. It's true. It's too big for a weather balloon, and a balloon would be a way to spy on in an age where anti-satellite warfare is a thing. Oh boy. They're $10 billion jets that actually can't take off when it's raining. Oh, man. Balloon Discourse. Goddamn. Very funny shit. All right. Let's see. Do I have any questions? I do have a bit of questions. I have a smattering of questions. So that's good. Okay. First question is, how big of a chance does Ron DeSantis have in the upcoming to becoming the Republican candidate? I would say decent, honestly. DeSantis has a lot of stuff going for him. He's very popular in the Republican Party with most of the base. Like, the Republican Party is sort of at a crossroads right now because it has some severe divisions between its interior neoliberal, neoconservative establishment, i.e. like the majority of the Republican Party insiders, and its base, who are basically hooting white supremacists who won't rest until basically every minority group they don't like is being put into extermination camps. What they don't realize is that the Republican base and the Republican establishment are sort of out of touch on a lot of these subjects. Now, DeSantis, who basically led an exterminationist campaign in Florida by basically doing nothing about COVID, which is a universally popular thing in the Republican Party, which was just ignoring COVID, will probably mean that he can, he can bridge the two pretty easily. He is somebody who appeals to the blood and soil of the Republican base, and also appeals to the, polite but also more money for us and fuck you policies of the Republican establishment. So. What's the SB community take on the CI4's involvement with the Nord Stream pipeline? Oh yeah. I'm waiting for some more on that. So anyone knows about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that was that blew up a few months back, that was going from Russia to basically mainland Europe, and everybody was accusing everybody else of doing it. And then an article came out, I think yesterday or the day before, trying to make the claim that the U.S. basically did it to exacerbate the war and keep countries like Germany from capitulating to Russia. But as far as I know, the reporting right now is only coming out from one guy who has had a little bit of a conspiracy bent in the last few years. So, Seymour Hersh, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. Yes. Very, what's it called? If he says America did something, it's definitely worth, listening to. But it's also, is it worth accepting whole cloth without a second opinion or anything like that? Is my, at this moment, I'm like, yeah, like at this current moment, my thinking is, it could be true. It could very well be true. It, what's it called? It is definitely not outside of America's, you know, America would do something like that. That is something that they would do to keep the war going. But at this point, we have one report, and I haven't seen much follow-up. And, you know, it could be the case, but I would need more than just one guy's story. Especially because Hirsch has had a not so lustrous recent career. While he's done some great stuff in the 70s, his recent stuff has tilted more into sort of into conspiracy theory stuff. And furthermore, on top of that, when like the only people who are reporting on it are the Times and Discourse, or what's that like conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy theory news account that a weird amount of people that I have respect for seem to give way too much actual credit to. I think it's like, is it discourse.tv or something like that? Disclosure.tv? Something like that. When those are the people who are talking about it, I get a little bit like, okay, I'm gonna wait for some more evidence before I really start getting into it. But we'll see. But like, I will say that if it does turn out that the U.S. did it, that would not surprise me at all. If it turns out that Seymour Hersh is 100% correct, that would not surprise me. Like, there is no way that there's no part of me that's like, America wouldn't do that. It wouldn't make any sense, or it would be like America wouldn't sink to that level, because they totally would, and they have in the past. And it's not, they do have the capabilities for that, and they do disrespect national sovereignty to that extent. So I do think that they would do it if it was the case. It's not Gray Zone. I think it's Disclosure. I think it's called disclosure.tv. I think. Disclose.tv, that's it. Which is like a kind of sketchy conspiracy theory news website. It has been a busy week, hasn't it? All right. What's the deal with participating in the culture war? Bullshit over the Wizard game anyway. From outsiders' perspective, it looks more like American consumerism dominating the discourse. To an extent, I think that there is some value to it, actually. That's why I posted the thing. That's why I've been, not streaming on Twitch right now, because of their promotion with Hogwarts Legacy. I think that it's just that we're in a moment where essentially there is ramping up genocidal discourse surrounding trans people. And if one of the people who is most active in trying to push a campaign to strip human rights away from a group of people that have an increasingly large group of, or increasingly more radical exterminationist rhetoric being said about them, maybe when one of the faces of the movement advocating for the extermination of an entire group of people makes a video game, that there should be some pushback. Maybe that's not a thing that you should be supporting directly. That's my take. I'd like to, if I can, get it so that, ideally, in an ideal world, we would get to a point where basically any company will think twice before working on Harry Potter stuff, because they know it's going to associate them with bigotry, hatred, and controversy. And you can only do that if you make noise, right? Am I not live on Twitch right now? I am not, because they're doing a Twitch drop promotion thing for Hogwarts Legacy, so I'm not, until that is over, I am not streaming on Twitch. It's one of the first things you've caught live? Well, that's awesome. Welcome to the stream. Orange Band, did I answer your question about Ron DeSantis to your satisfaction? I think that he has a decent chance of being... I mean, it really depends upon who else runs. I have a feeling that the person who becomes the Republican candidate for president is someone we might not know yet. But in the sort of roster, if it's a crowded roster, I think that DeSantis might do really well. If it's a small roster, he might have a bit more of a head-to-head, but I still think he has a decent chance. At the moment, it's just probably him and Trump. I think there was some talk about Nikki Haley. Is that her name? Let me check right now. Is it Nikki Haley? Or maybe. Nikki Haley, I think, is thinking about running for president. Who was like basically a CIA person under Donald Trump's government. If I remember correctly. No, she was just part of... I was thinking about Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel is, I think, we're thinking of running for president. And Nikki Haley, apparently, so... Or is Gina Haspel thinking about running for president? Or have I been making that mistake this entire time? Okay. Maybe it looks like she's not running for... So it's Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor. Or... Yeah. I don't know too much about her, but... I don't know. If she's running, there's some competition, but I have no idea how she stands with a lot of people. And I think that a lot of the victory, the Republican race, is going to be based on how well you can stay loyal to the party structure, while at the same time just being as openly blood and soil white supremacist as you think you can get away with on mainstream media. Whether or not Nikki Haley is up to that challenge, I think that Ron DeSantis has been threading that needle fairly successfully for the last few years, so he has a decent chance. Yeah. People choose Trump because Trump, he's basically as a cult. I have a feeling that I think that Trump might not. I feel like Trump actually might not do as well this time around. It seems that he's lost a lot of his grassroots base. I feel like there are enough people who would move from Trump to DeSantis that it would be pretty safe. I think that Trump, in the last few years, has lost a lot of his relevance in the public eye, and furthermore is associated with loss in the Republican Party, and is also I think he's not doing it the same way. His announcement of running for president was extremely bad. Basically, it was like a no energy snooze fest, as far as I've been told. And the only other thing he's done is try to sell fucking NFTs, which is also a weird thing to get into, because he got into NFTs a year too late. So I think that I feel like Trump isn't going to do as well as people think he will. I which is wild, because I thought that he had it in the bag, but it seems like he's just not doing well. He's just not. He's not who he was. Whoever, I feel like a lot of the people who gave him his juice have left, and now he's just surrounded by like his diehards, who are basically some of the biggest losers in his old camp. And anybody who has like, you know, real ambition or really knows what they're doing has left a long time ago. So that'd be my guess, is that either it's going to be DeSantis cakewalking, or it's going to be like a 20 plus person field of people. Like basically every ambitious Republican is going to run, and it's going to be another slugfest, of which I think that it could be that Ron DeSantis comes out on top of that, but it also could be the fact that it could also be the case that somebody that we're not even thinking of right now comes out on top, based on just the sort of narrative that happens at the time. Which sucks, because I feel like the chances of the Democrats winning in 2024 is very low. Have you heard anything from the Democrats yet? I don't think so, because in my mind, I think, or at least as far as I can tell, the Democrats are basically waiting to find out what Joe Biden's going to do. And Joe Biden's whole thing is that I think he was gearing up to let Kamala Harris take over in the 2024 election. But basically, ever since he became president, Kamala Harris has been an absolute train wreck of a vice president. And what they thought was that, hey, make her vice president. She can spend 4 years getting the public comfortable with her. And once they get to know her, they're going to think she's really great, and everybody will stand. And then we will have her run for president, and it'll go great, unlike the primaries where she was kind of unknown. But the problem is that she's awful in like many, many different ways. And now all she's associated with is do not come, basically telling immigrants don't come to the country. And just a whole bunch of like extremely bad and awkward press events. And they're basically hiding her at this point. And the same way they hide Joe Biden, because he can barely say a full, complete sentence. So my guess is that either Joe Biden's going to just run again. Or he will, because I feel like they don't want another competitive primary. I think they're under the impression that if he doesn't run, then there's going to be another Bernie Sanders type figure, if not Bernie Sanders himself, and that the Democrats are going to go through this entire thing, and they're going to have to, rig the entire system all over again to make sure that Bernie doesn't win again, and it's just going to cause a lot of unnecessary division that hurts them in the long term. So I think all of it ties up to the fact that Joe Biden will run again. Although it would be very funny if, if they tried to have force Hillary Clinton. There is the answer of like, these are all the logical things that people would think of, but sometimes it seems like in American politics, what you need to go for is what is the absolute dumbest idea that both sides would do, and that's most likely what will happen. And the dumbest idea would be that Hillary Clinton tries to do it again, and that the Democrats basically rig the entire system so she can be candidate again, and that Donald Trump wins the primaries, and you end up with a rehash of 2016 that ends the exact same way. That's the dumbest answer, so that's probably going to be what happens. That's I think is where we're at. I think that's where a lot of them are at. But yeah, I don't think I feel like the Democrats are in a pretty tough spot when it comes to this, because they know that they don't have a good chance with Joe Biden, and that without Joe Biden, they have a chance of like a candidate like a Bernie Sanders or like a John Fetterman, or even for 2024, technically Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, although her leftist credentials have taken quite a dip in the last few years. Any of those people could come in and do a socialist-ish, a social democratic challenge to the neoliberal order, which would cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. So that's where I'm at there. John Fetterman would just eat the opposition. Yeah, why doesn't the larger of the two candidates, John Fetterman, simply eat the other one? Man. All right, let's see what the next question we got here is. Do you think tables in a fast food restaurant would be a good analogy to explain to people how housing might work under socialism? Like, you know, if you're at McDonald's, you can just take any empty table. If you get up to do something, get condiments, say, people will generally respect the fact the table is still yours and not immediately take it for themselves. However, if you stay away for a good while, people will be reasonably to assume that the table is abandoned and view it up for grabs. Also, more importantly for this analogy, laying claim to a second table you're not using would be viewed as absurd. Basically, I like to imagine under socialism, you'd be able to take any home that's not being used and that no previous occupant is likely to come back in the near future. I told my dad this and he was like, it'd never work, and that's how tables and restaurants work. Okay, so, I mean, that is definitely better than the way things are now, but I would say that the real way that that socialist housing would work, I mean, if you want to go like the Soviet model suffered from the fact that it had insufficient supply to meet demand, which, you know, it was a matter of the fact that the Soviet Union was a poor country, not the fact that it was, or should I say, it wasn't a poor country, but it had to overinvest in the military because of the Cold War. But the way that the Soviet system worked is that you basically would report, like, if you had, like, the government assured X square feet per person who lived in the house. So if you were two people, you were guaranteed this much square footage, and they would find you an apartment, usually an apartment, that had the square footage that you required. And then if you had like another kid, or if somebody in your house died, or you split up or something like that, they would then find you a new house that would get you at least close enough to your work to that would have the square footage per person thing that you would have before. The only problem is that the other thing too is that the Soviets controlled where you worked. So if you worked in a factory in one city and then you needed to move to another place, they could just move you to another city and put you in that. So that's sort of the main way that it would work. The only problem is that the Soviets had serious problems when it came to housing supply. So very often, you know, if you had a kid or something like that and you were entitled to a bigger apartment, you would petition the government for a bigger apartment, but it could be years before they actually found you one. And so you had a lot of cases where you had like huge families living in very small apartments because there just weren't enough bigger apartments for people to live in. Which was, you know, mostly due to the fact that there were just not enough housing for a lot of the cases. But that could be fixed by, you know, having more housing. But if you want to do something more informal, like what you talked about here with this proposal of treating it like a restaurant in a restaurant situation, sure. But either way, like, yeah, the main thing that you're doing is decommoditizing housing. Even if we had to do this even if we had to do if we had to have a capitalist economy, but we had decommoditized housing, things would still be a lot better. The idea is that you don't treat housing like it's a investment asset, but you would just treat housing like it is, like for what it is, which is a building for you to live in. And so you could say, if you were to put in like, situations that made it so that, you weren't allowed to have investment properties, that people weren't allowed to rent out their homes or things like that, you would very quickly have it so that housing would be greatly improved, even without, getting rid of the capitalist economic system. But if you were to get rid of the capitalist economic system, you could have a sort of bureaucratic answer that would answer a lot of the issues of housing a lot faster. And furthermore, you would have a way better idea of the demands on the housing system that, like, capitalism doesn't have. Because capitalism is all about, like, under capitalism, the construction industry is entirely maximized around investment properties. So, like, for example, in Toronto, there's this huge drive to build gigantic condos. But the thing is that they're making these condos to sell to people who aren't going to live in them. They're just going to be investment properties. So they're building these giant condos that are going to cost a lot of money to buy, but they suck. They're poorly constructed because the people who are buying them and the people who are living in them are completely different people. So all of the incentive is to just build luxury condos that suck. While, like, a different situation that was based on more government sort of stuff would be based on trying to make it so that the amount of housing available matched the demands of the people that lived there, and would hopefully have a better sort of incentive system in place because of that. So there would be more incentive to build, cheap apartments rather than building, like, luxury condos or whatever. That sounds too invasive. Also, why are you talking about the USSR like it was really socialist? I mean, it definitely was, like, it was definitely not a great, like, a perfect system, but their housing system, like, that is undeniably a socialist housing system, is it not? Because, like, if you were to do things informally, sure, that would be great. But, like, the other thing is that how long do you have to not be in your house for it to be considered abandoned? How do you agree to that? What bodies do you use to agree to that? What kind of, like, things do you put in place? I think that some sort of system in place that's... Because I feel like these kinds of systems are great for when you are trying to make a place... Like, you're trying to... It's a matching problem, right? And, like, the medical system... Like, the medical system already has a thing like this where doctors have to apply to hospitals to do their residencies. And they have a whole system of matching involved to make sure that everybody kind of gets to the best place they want to go. And I think that that is a better way to handle housing than sort of a vibes-based system. I think that because housing is so multifaceted and it has so many different demands and different types of family structures and things like that, that it would be smarter to find some way to automate that in a sort of interesting way. And you can have that sort of stuff that is not necessarily centralized and could be confederated and all sorts of things, We have found ways to organize and communicate based on ways that are not necessarily needing a centralized authority. Some of them technologically didn't exist in the 20th century, so that's why, like, the Soviets didn't think that they could handle it. But I think that there's still more. Am I still an anarchist? Hell yeah. I think that I'm an anarchist in the philosophical sense that I think that the less hierarchy and the less the more horizontal and the less hierarchical a system can be, and the more participatory it can be, the better. I just think that that doesn't mean that we can't, like, it doesn't, like, being against the idea of rulers and, like, the idea of monopolies on the force on the thing of the use of force doesn't mean that I'm against the concept of organization and cooperation and and collectivization. I think that a lot of those things are necessary for running a modern economy in a socialist fashion. It's just that you don't need it to be run through like the central authority. It can be more modular and decentralized. Canadian podcast I listened to said that Canadian conservatism used to be monarchist and align more with the Tory UK, but recently has become very American/Trump accurate. Yeah, that's getting more and more accurate, I think. Most problematic YouTuber that you still low key enjoy? Probably. My guess is that it's internet comment etiquette. I don't know why they would be problematic, but I imagine that they, like, the people who make internet comment etiquette are, they come pretty close to stuff that I imagine some people would find problematic or troublesome in a way that. In a big way, and that would be probably pretty close to where I sit on that, because I think internet comment etiquette is very funny, but I know that, or I would guess that it probably rubs some people the wrong way. You don't think internet comment etiquette is problematic? Okay, then. But I'm trying to think about if there is like I'm trying to think of my list of like problematic creators and people that I really enjoy, and there's not a huge overlap in my head. I gotta look at my my subscriptions. So the thing is, a lot of the YouTubers that I watch these days are either not problematic, or they are, or at least as far as I know, or like what they talk about has like literally nothing to do with political stuff. Like I basically just watch, like your typical roster of breadtubers, and like then on top of that, stuff about role-playing games and Slay the Spire, and sometimes board games, but like that's it. Okay. I think the most problematic YouTuber that I still watch is probably Johnny Harris. Johnny Harris definitely has some fairly yikes takes when it comes to the U.S. military-industrial complex and stuff, but also makes absurdly engaging and interesting documentaries about educational topics that I find really cool. So I'm going to go with Johnny Harris. I know it's sort of a milquetoast answer, I guess, but that's sort of all I could come up with. Okay. Yeah. All right. What's my opinion on the recent Wizards Hasbro nets, and do you have a favorite TTRPG? Well, people are going to think that I planted this question. So if anyone doesn't know, I think there's some interesting stuff to be said about the Hasbro Wizards of the Coast OGL drama that happened a few weeks ago, that basically dominated the discourse through all of January. And don't worry, I won't go into too much depth because I feel like a lot of people will find that boring. But basically, they did the equivalent if like Windows tried to make it so that you could, like, say if Microsoft decided to say in the future that if you wanted to make software for Windows, if you made over a certain amount of money off that software, you had to give like something like 25% of the money you made to Microsoft. And so imagine if they had said that after like years and years and years of having Windows just exist and anybody being able to make software for it. So, and basically Wizards of the Coast tried to do that because people who don't understand how Dungeons & Dragons works were basically looked at this thing called the Open Gaming License that was made in 2000, which was essentially made so that other third-party creators could make content for Dungeons & Dragons without them having to invest the money in building all of this adventure stuff, because they could just keep making their splat books and other things. And but the thing is that it had built into sort of almost like a GitHub, or not GitHub, but almost into like a sort of open source platform based on just a mutual promise that if you publish onto this open gaming license that nobody would sue each other. And they tried to reel that back, and they got absolutely creamed for it to the point where they had to basically completely reverse course on everything that they had planned for this. And now they're very sorry, mostly because I think they have a book coming out this week, and they have a movie coming out next month, and I think they have a TV show in production, and like a bunch of stuff that they're hoping to be able to like get people to forget about this whole fiasco. Oh, and they have a new edition of D&D coming out next year. So all of those are the case of what's going on with that. A lot of people didn't understand it because it is sort of a weird part of the DIY sort of maker culture that is a lot of RPG spaces, where a lot of RPG nerds like and thrive off of the sort of open sourcey nature of a lot of things. And it basically they basically try to pull out the rug from this thing that had been upholding an entire industry for like 20 years. And that didn't go well. And I think that they learned it. They fucked around and they found out. That is the short story about what happened to Hasbro / Wizards. And at this point, there are a lot of people who sort of, because, you know, D&D is basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe of role-playing games. There's a lot of people who are like, this is the only thing I ever want to play. I never want to learn a new thing ever in my life. I just want to play the Dragon game forever. And that is it. And there's a lot of people who legitimately, during this, somehow moved out of that thinking, which was very prevalent in the RPG space up until January. Now that they've said that they're very, very sorry and they're not going to do it again, people are using that as an excuse to basically go back to the Dragon game that they wanted to play. But not everybody. And there's a lot of people who are investigating new games. That makes me very happy. As far as me, I am a person who played who's played a bunch of role-playing games and likes a lot of them and has favorites for different sorts of things, but also, because of just sheer popularity, basically always has to play the Dragon game. It's almost 100% of what I run and play. But I would love it if I was playing more. As far as my favorites go, I haven't. So, like, I played Pathfinder. I have a Pathfinder 2e over on my shelf there. I thought that was really fun. And if I wanted to play something that's sort of like a D&D like experience, where it's like, you know, very tactical war game with a lot of like crunchy mechanics, I would prefer to play something like Pathfinder over D&D. But as far as most games go, I think I'm more of like a Fishblade type person who likes like story-focused, rules-light games. Like, I like Fate Core a lot. I like. I just last night finished reading the Avatar role playing game because I'm going to be playing a session of that, and I thought that was pretty fun. But I don't think I have like a super strong favorite. Honestly, I think my favorite RPG is my like ideal RPG group would be one where we are playing different systems all the time, where we're trying new things, where we're doing different types of stories, and we're not just always playing high fantasy in this 5th edition game, which is basically like trying to be somewhere between the story-focused indie games and the sort of crunchy tactical war game and sort of failing at both. Yeah. My favorite character that I played in tabletop was definitely Avatar RPG as in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes. I have one of my friends wants to run a one-shot in Avatar Legends, and I was reading it so that I can play in it. I was pretty excited for that. So play GURPS then. GURPS is a little bit too granular. I don't think I'm into taking 2 hours to build a character. That doesn't sound super great to me. Maybe I'd like it if I gave it a shot, but if I were to play something that was more general utility thing, I would probably play Fate more than GURPS. But my if I were to say like my like absolute favorite, or like like my absolute favorite character that I've ever played, it was definitely is Blitz Carlton. So one of the things that I did is there was this group that I played for. This was years ago. It's like in 2017, 2018, that period. We played a Fate Core campaign that took place in like a space opera setting that we had made in Microscope. And the whole thing about Fate is that you basically have all of these different stats and you sort of rank them from your best to your worst. And it looks sort of like a pyramid. So at the top you have like one that you're really good at, and it sort of moves its way down. And one of the major things that we established in the setting that we had built together was that a major factor was uplifted plants and animals, which we called cyberflora and cyberfauna. And so uplifted animals and uplifted plants became a large part of the setting. And my character was an uplifted panda bear named Blitz Carlton. And his entire shtick was that, like, the top stat that I picked was resources. And resources is essentially, like, basically how much stuff you have and what kind of, like, if you roll resources to be like, do you have this item on you? Or do you have enough money to afford this kind of thing? That kind of thing. And so I made it so that my character was extremely useless, but he had fuckloads of money. So we were like playing like a sort of group of like, you know, kind of like space mercenary freelancer sort of people. And my character was the patron who owned the ship and had all of the gadgets. But he was completely inept at doing anything else. And said, had great lines like, somebody like asked if I had like read some book, and I said, no, have you ever tried reading? It's the worst. And just, was like actively just a complete like selfish dick who did not want to do anything, and but like was very funny about it. Like I wasn't like an actual like dick to like the other players. I still participated in stuff like that, but my character was just like an absolute, like he was useless in every single way except that he knew everybody and had like infinite money. And I thought it was very funny. My fursona is a panda, noted. All right, let's be fair. If I had a fursona, it'd probably be like a rhino or something. I don't know how fursonas work, really. I am like so far from being a furry, I can't even imagine. Have you ever played Star Trek tabletop? No. I've been wanting to get Star Trek Adventures, the Modiphius game, for a long time. The only problem is that Star Trek Adventures are very, very, very hard. Like, copies of that game are very hard to come across here in Canada. only time I've ever seen Star Trek Adventures for sale on Amazon, it's been for like $80. And I've only ever seen copies in game stores once, and it was like for like $75. And I'm like, I don't really want to buy $75 for a game that I know I'm not going to ever be able to get a group to play. Furthermore, if I wanted to play a Star Trek game, I think I would just play it in Fate, because I feel like Fate would fit better for what I would get out of a Star Trek game than like the actual Star Trek game. But I did pay way too much money for the same company, the same system, for their 2D20 version of the Dune RPG, which I actually can show you. One second, I set my headphones up. This is an RPG that's high on my list of ones that I want to play at some point, where it's the Dune role-playing game. And the whole idea behind it is that you not only make your character, but your character is part of a house that you also make. And it has like whole systems in place for playing different types of houses, and there's like a lot of politics involved. And furthermore, it's got mechanics that I like a lot that do for building tension and stuff. There's like a thing where like I think it's in Dune, where in Dune you can you get points when you succeed, or the GM gets points when you succeed that they can then use to fuck you over later. So there's sort of like a back and forth of like damage. And I like that. I like games that mechanically, because one of the things I think that's hardest to do in role-playing games is pacing. Pacing and narrative structure are probably the hardest things to do in a role-playing game. And anything that makes it so that the GM has tools to make the pace of the game good is good by me. All right, I've been talking about that for way too long. I know that there's not everybody loves when I talk about role-playing games for half the stream, which I do far too often. All right, what would you do if you thought your kid was being pulled into the alt-right by their online community when they're a teenager? Whew. Well, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that if my kid ends up, like, my idea is that if my kid is in any way interested in that kind of politics as a teenager, that I have fucked up at some point in the process. So I'm hoping that, that the main way to avoid that is to teach my child empathy and kindness in a way that the alt-right would not be appealing to them. But of course, you can't control those people. You can't control people all the time. And I think that I would try to, if I saw that he was leaning towards those kinds of like problematic political positions, that I would probably try to introduce, different ideas about like, the general, like being generally kind to others and tolerance and all that kind of stuff. So, but honestly, that's not even a great answer. I don't know what the answer would be. I'm hoping that it just doesn't become an issue. You don't need to teach them that, just be the example. Yeah. Do I ever watch Bo the Fifth Column? No. I mean, I don't have anything against his stuff. I just don't watch him that much. I don't watch a lot of YouTube anymore. I don't have the time. So, and if I am going to watch YouTube, Bo the Fifth Column was not like one of my like, must watch type YouTubers. So I don't typically watch a lot of his stuff. Although I have no issues with, like, he's not a bad YouTuber. It's just like not my favorite. did I accidentally delete a question? One second. I gotta like... Okay, so it's this one here. Okay, yeah. I did not answer that one. All right. Fixed. Quick Control Z. Yeah, I know. Well, the Control Z didn't work. What about some more news? Cody used to work for Cracked YouTube. His stuff is great. Yeah. I like some more news as well. Although, again, I don't really watch some more news regularly. If there's an interesting video topic that comes up like on my home screen, maybe I'll watch it. But I've like... The thing about some more news is that their videos are so long that like... If I'm going to watch a video that's like an hour long, it better be on a subject that I really, really like. And I am very, very tired of... I'm very, very tired of just like, you know, takedown of right-wing figure content. I feel like I've had enough of that stuff. It kind of bores me now. Right-wing takedown videos I think I've watched enough of them for me to be fine. I'm satiated now. I don't need it. You mean Hogwarts Legacy? Why not? Oh, for the text? Because if you buy Hogwarts Legacy, you are first of all directly giving money to J.K. Rowling, who is one of the largest activists on Earth right now, trying to lead an exterminationist campaign against an entire population of people, i.e., trans people. But furthermore, like that, what's it called? That trans people have asked that in solidarity of, you know, advancing their human rights to try to not buy this game, at least in an effort so that at some time people will associate the Harry Potter franchise with controversy, and that, you know, it's not just like a thing that you know, whenever J.K. Rowling's work shows up somewhere, the fact that she is a bigot should be part of the conversation. That's the main thing. And all that trans people have asked is to just not buy this one video game, which seems like a very minor thing to ask. The only grocery store I'm rural in my area is owned by the biggest donator to January 6th rally and QAnon stuff in general. What am I to do morally? I mean, they got you over a barrel in that situation. You don't need to worry about it. I wouldn't worry about that. There's a big difference between this is the only grocery store I have access to and whether or not to buy a single video game, you know? Like, it's like how people are like, oh yeah, like everyone has different sorts of levels of ethical jobs and, you know, no ethical production or no ethical consumption under capitalism type thing. And then like, yeah, but you could also not you could also not sell cigarettes, for example. Like there's a difference between like, you know, you have to participate under capitalism. Capitalism is built on exploitation and you're always giving money to shitty people, and like intentionally buying a thing you do not need to that supports terrible people. Was the missing questions one of mine? Because I got them all written down still. I got it back. I had to do some digging for it, but I got it. And it's this question right now. Why did the Democrats decide voting to condemn socialism was a good move for them from a PR perspective? I kind of thought the Democrats' typical MO was to do symbolically progressive shit while, for the most part, passing actual policy that's conservative. This feels like the total opposite of that. It's a symbolically conservative gesture that does nothing practical. Supporting it just seems like pissing off their progressive voters for literally no reason. I wish I knew the answer. I still think that there is a constituency in the I feel like the Democratic Party as like they're liberals. They're not socialists, and liberals do think that like they're like how do I say this? I don't know. I think that a lot of the Democratic Party do think that socialism is a bad association with them. otherwise they would say it more, but they like actively talk about not being socialist. So I think that they think that they are helping their image by being like, yeah, look, the Republicans can't call us socialists if we like actively voted to condemn it, so therefore we win. Love Step Back's content. Very happy to see the stream. Oh, thank you very much, Meta Postmodern. Who's your favorite U.S. congressperson and why is it Ilhan Omar? And it's either Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib. I feel like the squad that Rashida Tlaib gets doesn't get, kind of flies under the radar, but I think she's the most based member of the quote-unquote squad, and I think and she can also run for president technically, but yeah. Rashida Tlaib was the one that said, you know, we'll impeach the fucker, and I thought that was great. I thought that was great. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, there you go. Best answer. Even if the boycott doesn't change the amount of income acquired by Warner Brothers, the backlash itself is meaningful because it shows transphobes that their dangerous rhetoric will not go unchallenged. Perfect. No notes. A+, 10 out of 10. All right. When watched House MD as a teenager, I remembered thinking, I hope one day people think I'm so smart they have to tolerate my antisocial. Basically, I was doing the same thing with House a lot of Rick and Morty fans also do with Rick. I was missing the point that you're not supposed to think being a genius makes being a prick okay, and just indulging the fantasy of being so smart people would have to put up with me having poor social skills. I think it's possible to write a character like Rick or House or Sherlock in a way so that a lot of fans, i.e. the younger males, won't do that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to write that kind of thing, and I feel like I don't know if I'm trying to think of anybody who's ever done it really well. The closest I can think of is that you could take inspiration from but doesn't necessarily fit it is BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman is an example of a character who is not so smart but so rich that and famous that everybody around him has to put up with his bullshit, but very clearly establishes that he is not the good person in the show. And kind of spoiler alert for the broad stroke of the show, but the end of the show is basically everybody in his life distancing themselves from him because he's essentially torpedoed every single one of his relationships. And I think that in some ways House tried to do that, but House did a particularly bad job at portraying that House was not a good person and that he keeps fucking things up. And Rick and Morty, to an extent, also does that. Another good one, and I feel like every time I talk about Rick and Morty, I'm just going to talk about how I think that everything that Rick and Morty tried to say was said better by the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. And if you want an example of a character who is nihilistic and sort of absorbed the entirety of the universe and is thinks that they're smarter and better than everyone, but then sort of has to give in to has to give into their has to embrace their connections to others. Everything Everywhere All at Once has that essential thing. I think everything if I was Dan Harmon, who was trying to figure out how to make Rick and Morty come out of the sort of rut it's in, and especially to come back from the blow of Justin Roiland. Look at the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once as inspiration for how to write the sort of multiversal story thing. Even some Doctor Who, like, I think so, did somebody point that out? Some of the more recent Doctor Who also fits, like the 10th and 11th Doctors are like, these beings of like infinite intelligence, and yet they make an explicit point to be like, empathetic characters and such. But you're looking for like, can you write a bad person, a legitimately terrible person who is also really smart and witty, that then have like, establish that they are not the good person, even if they are the protagonist of the show, and if they're written very, very smartly. And that, I don't know. That is it's definitely a difficult writing challenge, and I think it's been done better in novels than in television. But yeah. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia gets by making the bad characters fail. Yeah, I guess there is that. I've never I actually, this will be controversial. I've never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so I don't really have much I can say about that. I do think, though, it says more about how young men have a very shitty, like, they have a very shitty concept of what makes somebody cool, that needs to be addressed in a more large sense. I need to put It's Always Sunny on my list. I'm just going to do that now before I forget. Any experience with Neon Genesis Evangelion? Evangelion. I haven't watched, I'll be honest, I haven't really watched a lot of anime at all. And I definitely haven't seen that one. How many seasons is Always Sunny in now? 15. God damn. Okay. All right, let's see. There's an Ian Banks novel that's basically premised on, if James Bond was a real person, he'd be narcissistic sociopath. That's pretty good. Interesting. I know you're saying you're satiated with right-wingers being dragged, but isn't it great that Greta took down Tate? I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, the fact that she, that in his obsession with attacking Greta Thunberg, he basically led to him getting arrested, and now is probably the reason he's going to be in prison forever. So that's pretty good. I don't really know that much about Andrew Tate, but I'm glad that from the few things I have heard, I'm glad that that nothing's happening to him, or that he's, or I'm glad that he's getting his comeuppance, it seems, for basically being a human trafficker. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I've ever watched an Eon Genesis Evangelion. Ever. It's not sticking out anyway. All right. The last question is just from Mia. So I should probably, if anyone has any more questions to submit, you can. Otherwise, we're just going to vibe for the last half hour. His arrest wasn't related to Greta. I thought that he did a thing where he made a video responding to Greta Thunberg and he got all mad. And then in his frame that there was a pizza box that led the Romanian police to realize that he was still in Romania and were able to hunt him down and arrest him for it. Okay. If that's not the case, then that's sad. That is a great story. A teenage girl causing him to be in prison seems like karmic vindication. Is she still a teenager? I could have sworn. I thought she'd be like 20 by now. Yeah, she is 20. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Unlike some others, also maybe good to point out that as well supporting that J.K. Rowling's game is anti-Semitic too. Yeah, there's some Jewish groups that have also called to not buy the game because it basically has a whole plot of putting down a slave uprising by very, very anti-Semitic stereotypes. So yeah. So story around the police used the name of the pizza box to find him. There you go. Everybody wins. So what else is so yeah. I'm glad to not. I think I'm happier not knowing much about Andrew Tate. I know that he was like a big piece of shit and like openly misogynistic and a human trafficker. So, which seems to be the most that I need to know about him. The Goblin anti-Semitic stereotype stand-in rebellion happened in 1612, the same period of an actually Jewish rebellion, and led to a pogrom. Lovely, fucking horrible. Oh my god, how did that one get past? Get past legal. Hey, thank you for the 2 British pounds. Will the U.S. even have an election in 2028 if the GOP win in 24? Oh, it'll have an election. It just probably won't be very democratic because of how restrictive it'll be to vote. But they'll definitely, like, what's it called? They'll definitely keep having elections, you know? They just won't mean anything. Wasn't the game director for the Turf game also a Gamergate YouTuber? I feel like that guy got fired, but maybe not. But I also can't be sure about that. It does seem like it's too many things for them to have just been careless, you know? You're a historian. I grew up in the American South, and the Lost Cause wasn't top. It was still very popular. Did that have any play with Canadian conservatives or nah? I would say that... What do you mean play with Canadian conservatives? So... like the Lost Cause narrative? I mean... If you think about it, in Canada, the American Civil War doesn't play as large a role. Although you still see random assholes with Confederate flags in Canada for some reason. But if you're talking about like just like sort of racist historical revisionism, hell yeah, our Tory party is all about that shit, especially for denying the displacement and genocide that we did to Indigenous people. They're all over that shit. But the Civil War doesn't loom heavy in our history because we didn't fight in it. Still a director for most of development. Yeah, that's pretty shitty. Confederate flags in the country that the goddamned Underground Railroad led to. Yeah. There are fucking cranks and weirdos and racists in Canada too. I feel like it's extra bad because there's not even like a pretense of like it being a cultural thing in Canada. Like what other reason would you have to fly such a thing? Do I have a degree? Just curious. I have several. I have a honors bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's degree with honors in history. I have 2 master's degrees. I have one in history that I did a thesis about U.S. history. And I did another master's degree in American cultural studies. Can I have one of your degrees? One of my degrees, like one of like the actual paper degrees, I never picked up from convocation. So it's still sitting in the university somewhere, or they threw it out and I have to buy a new one. I got one of them on my wall over there. But my my American Studies master's degree is still... I don't have a copy of it. I probably should get one at some point. But I already have, like, I have against the wall over there, like, a bunch of shit I need to hang on the wall that I don't really want to, because I'm lazy. Oh, friends. Oh boy. So what can we talk about? What's going on? Got a little bit of time before our typical time when the stream ends. Although if we have like legitimately run out of steam, we could always call it a little bit early. It's been it's been a good stream, and yeah. Scottish independence, yes. Good. Do it. Scotland, get the fuck out. Get back into the European Union's waiting bosom. Talk about Maoism? What about Maoism? Having run Modifius's Star Trek Adventures is very much worth reading and playing. I also have a copy of Dune, and it scales so well. That's good. My Star Trek Adventures just I'm curious. I've heard it has mechanics for like, you know, it has mechanics based around like sort of science-y questions. Like it has like the board, the sort of senior staff meeting scenes as a mechanic, as a scene, and I'm interested in what that ends up looking like. The only thing to me is that I feel like for what I would want out of a Star Trek game, there's the Modifius Star Trek Adventures is just too crunchy. You know, like I don't know if a Star Trek game really needs you to have like very granular abilities and stats and stuff like that you get for being a Tellarite versus being an Andorian or whatever. All the ST games are crunchy. Well, yeah, that's why, like, if I were to play what's it called? If I were to play Star Trek game, I'd play it in Fate. I think Fate would fit what would work for Star Trek. Oh, does Star Trek have a life path character generation system? I love those, and I would love to get that. I don't know what Blue Shell game mechanic is. Oh, you're talking about like Mario Kart? That could be fun. But yeah, I feel like if I was a person, I would play a lot of. If I were a person, if I were, you know, dictator of role playing games, I would probably have a lot of my games take place in Fate. I think Fate is a pretty fun engine that can play a lot of different games very well. They're complaining about how we never hear about Federation internal politics. Will political disputes even be about post-capitalism? I don't even know. My guess is that internal politics of the Federation would be about, like, you know, economic policy, treaties, integrating new members, you know, international relations with the other empires, that kind of stuff. Cipher system is also a very flexible rules system that isn't crunchy. The idea that your hit points and your points used to do things are the same thing really doesn't appeal to me. And it's the one thing that's making the Cipher system really chafe whenever I hear about doing it. It's one of the reasons I haven't played Numenera. So I'm not super into that concept. Or am I thinking of something else? Am I thinking, is it? I always get Cipher and Cortex mixed up, but I think that's a Cipher system. But yeah, the thing about Star Trek's internal politics is that they intentionally don't talk about it because it's supposed to be utopic, and if they ever actually say what their politics are, then a lot of people would get mad about it. They don't want anybody. They want the politics to be vague enough so that Star Trek's politics can fit whatever your idea of utopia is. I too wish I was a person. Yeah, man, that was a. that's my, like, what's it called? That's my brain not working great. That's why Charlie Kirk could be a big Star Trek fan. Yeah. The conservative Star Trek fans, they still flabbergast me. I feel like you have to miss a lot of the point of Star Trek to be a conservative Star Trek fan. But then again, Star Trek was run by a conservative for most of the 90s, so maybe it's me who's missing the point. Would you want, like, a political drama about the Federation Council? I feel like I would. I feel like that show would not do well, but it's a show that I would particularly want. Yeah, I mean, Star Trek spent most of the 90s being written by a misogynistic conservative who generally hated the idea of good storytelling as a concept. He hated stakes. He hated making a point with anything. And that, like, destroyed Star Trek so hard. Like, there's so many Voyager episodes where Rick Berman was, like, you know, pretty involved, where they came so close to saying something poignant, but then they just didn't, because they didn't want there to be too much tension in the show. Like the Tuvix episode, there were so many things they could have done with that episode, and they just decided not to because they thought it would make it be too complicated. Yeah, Deep Space Nine was so good was because Rick Berman basically hated the show and didn't want anything to do with it. So they were able to just do whatever they wanted, and it led to them being the best Star Trek show, in my opinion. Honestly, it's one of the best shows, in my opinion. To fair to Rick Berman, some of that is just how syndicated television worked. Yeah, I guess. But the thing is, like, TNG managed to be a syndicated TV show, and it had so many great episodes that were, like, you know, really poignant and said some really great things. And yet they just, like, he never would ever do that. Like, syndicated television, yeah, basically in the 90s, because of reruns, a lot of TV shows had to be very self-contained episodic things. So, like, one episode of TV had to be watchable if you had never seen any other episode of the show before and still get you something out of it. Because they would often do that when they, like, you know, syndicated the show, which is basically like running reruns of the show on other networks. And so you notice that, like, a lot of older TV shows have fairly self-contained episodes. And when that starts to break down is when you start getting more, like, serialized content where things start, like, where you need to watch the entire season to understand what's going on. But yeah. Favorite Voyager episode in Living Witness, where a copy of the Doc wakes up in 700 years in the future. Have I seen that one? Oh yeah, I've seen every episode of Voyager. Don't even. But, like, there are some one-part self-contained episodes of, like, TNG and Deep Space Nine that have so many great things to say and do so many great things, and Voyager just never does it, never rises to the occasion. Like, for example, in The Pale Moonlight, one of the greatest, like, television episodes of a show ever. You've also got Measure of a Man, which, like, won a fucking Emmy, if I remember correctly. They've got there was Measure of a Man was the Data going on trial one. There was, what was another really good one? I'm trying to remember the name of the one where Picard gets, like, he lives, like, an entire 80-year life being connected to some, like, like a probe or something. And it ends with him like being like genuinely terrified, and he like starts what's it called? Like he learns how to play like a flute or something like that, and it ends with him like, oh my god, fucking, I never not cried during that episode. Darmok, another self-contained episode of TNG that's fucking amazing. Feelings on 60s Star Trek. 60s Star Trek has to my mind, there's some interesting stuff that it does because it's Star Trek. Like it's got some interesting stuff if you're invested in the world, and if you're invested in like if you have a high tolerance for campiness, there's some great stuff. But there are a few like legitimately great episodes of TNG, like the episode where they go back to the 1930s. There's an episode where they go back to the 1930s and have to I think it's like McCoy or something like that gets hopped up on some hallucinogenic drug, and they have to go and find him. Great episode, really great episode. And there's a few other really good ones too, but there's a lot of faff in TOS that I am not on for. But there's so TOS is like very hit and very miss. And sometimes though its misses are also entertaining. Like Spock's brain is a legitimately hilarious episode because it's just so terrible. Faff, like it's just bad or boring. There's a lot of like just bad Star Trek. There's a lot of bad TOS episodes. Someone said, where do you want to start if you want to start with Star Trek? Depending upon your tolerance for children's media, I would say that the best recent thing, The Visitor, is the best DS9 episode. I disagree. But thank you for the £2 super chat. But I think that I still am under the impression that In the Pale Moonlight is the best DS9 episode. Trying which one is the I'm trying to remember which one that is. Oh, that's the one where they see Jake as an old man. Yeah, that's a good one too, actually, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of TOS episodes that are boring bad. But there are... So the thing is that TOS has a very hard mix of boring bad, good bad, and genuinely good shows. And the problem with TOS is that it has a lot of boring bad episodes. Did I watch the the recent-ish DS9 documentary? Yes, I did. But if you wanted like a genuine show that was like written to be almost an introduction to the Star Trek universe, and you didn't mind watching children's media, the new Star Trek show, Prodigy, actually acts like almost like a tutorial level for the Star Trek universe. It is a 3D animated show for children, but I think it finds its voice and is genuinely good. And it actively, like, it's based on, because it's designed for children, it doesn't have the sort of pre-existing Star Trek requirement. And so it actually, in various episodes, onboards you to different aspects of the Star Trek universe over time. And so I think is legitimately great for that. It's legitimately good as a first Star Trek show. But also, it's a Nickelodeon show for like 7-year-olds. So I know that that's not for everyone. And if that is the case, then yeah, TNG is probably the best place to start. There's a really great website. I think it's called Let's Watch Star Trek. Yeah, so there's a website. If you go to a website called letswatchstartrek.com and you open up and there's episode guides for all of them. And if you go to the episode guide for TNG and you just start by watching, there's actually like something called a taste test, where there are 3 TNG episodes that are basically like, watch these 3 to see if the show is for you. The first one being season 3, episode 10, called The Defector, which is about sort of Romulan stuff, because Romulans play like a big thing in the show, so that kind of gives you a taste of the main villain of the show. Second is Data's Day, which is sort of a lot of like what TNG has that's great, with like the sort of slice of life fun. Like, one of the best things about TNG is that more than any other Star Trek, it gives you a lot of the sort of slice of life feel, and in many ways it's very cozy in that sense. The other one is Timescapes, season 6, episode 25, which is some like kind of like the weird high concept sci-fi stuff. So if you watch those 3 and you sort of get an idea, there's also a list of like the essentials. But if you go through, it has a list of like every single episode of TNG and gives them a rating from like 3 to 5 stars. And 3 are basically considered watchable and up. And if it is lower than 3, but it is essential for understanding the continuity, it also says you should watch that one too. Because there are a few episodes that are bad, but you need to watch them to understand the story. And so it puts that on there. So let's watch StarTrek.com is probably the best place to get started. Okay, so it's now 2:00. I just realized because I'm not on Twitch, I can't rate anybody. But yeah, everybody, you've been great. Have an amazing weekend. I'll be back next Friday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Don't buy the Wizard game. And I'll see you guys